Hi, my name is Jessica Dunne. I'm currently serving in my 5th year as a councilwoman here in Dunellen, and I'm so excited to read to you today in honor of Women's History Month. I've chosen a book that's a favorite of mine and my daughter's, part of the Rebel Girls series, so Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. This is the 2nd edition. I'm going to pick a few of our favorites. There are over 100 stories here in this book that I hope you will check out and read, really in honor of some amazing women and pioneers. All right, so the first story I'm going to read to you today is about Carmen Amaya. And this is a picture of Carmen. So I tried to pick a selection of women from around the world in different parts of what they do. And so Carmen Amaya was a dancer. And the night Carmen Amaya came into the world, Barcelona was lashed by a terrible storm. Thunder boomed, lightning crashed, and the rain turned the narrow lanes into raging streams of filthy water. Carmen's family were Romany gypsies, and flamenco dancing was in their blood. When Carmen's father first saw her dance, he wondered if something of that storm had entered his daughter's veins when she was born. Carmen learned flamenco steps from her aunt, who was herself a great dancer. But the little girl never played by the rules. She made up her own. To earn money, she danced barefoot in the tavernas down by the waterfront. She gained the respect of even the toughest sailors, who nicknamed her La Capitana, the captain. Soon she began to perform in big theaters. She earned enough money for her family to move out of the shack where she was born and into a decent apartment. They could afford to eat ham sandwiches instead of sardines. On stage, Carmen preferred tight-fitting trousers and a high-cut bolero jacket to the traje de flamenca, the traditional dress worn by female dancers. When she first appeared like that, the audience was in an uproar. How dare this slip of a girl wear men's clothing? But when she began to dance, Carmen silenced them all. Stamping out lightning-fast rhythms on the stage, she sometimes broke the floorboards. Her footwork was so ferocious, said one member of the audience. Her dancing was almost supernatural. Carmen was such an incredible dancer that to this day she is remembered as the Queen of the Gypsies. And quote from her says, trousers are unforgiving. They show us every mistake and they give you nothing to take hold of. So I really like that story because she was a real pioneer and in dancing and broke a lot of barriers and really helped her family in the process. The next one I'm going to read is a little bit older. It's Hortensia, who was born right around the turn of the century in Italy. And she was an orator. So this is going back almost 2,000 years. And so I'll read you this story. Maybe one of the earliest feminists that we have record of. Once there was a woman who knew how to win an argument. Her name was Hortensia, and she lived through a turbulent time in the history of ancient Rome. The Roman Emperor Julius Caesar had recently been killed, and he was replaced as a ruler by Mark Antony, Octavian, and Marcus Aemilius Lepidus. Together, they were called the Triumvirs. The Triumvirs wanted to declare war on the assassins of Julius Caesar, but they needed money to pay for the conflict. So they decided to tax the property of 1,400 rich Roman women to finance it. Hortensia was one of them. She didn't think that it made sense that women had no say in a decision that affected them, however, so she decided to do something about it. At first, she tried to persuade the Triumvirs' wives to talk to their husbands, but she wasn't successful. Flavia, Mark Antony's wife, was more interested in protecting her husband's decision than her own rights, and she threw Hortensia out of their house. Outraged, Hortensia pushed her way into the tribunal and made her case with a memorable speech. "Why should we finance your war?" she demanded, "when we have no say in the government, no honors, and no part in public office? We would gladly pay taxes to help protect our country against a foreign invasion, but you cannot force us to sponsor your civil war." The Triumvirs were furious, but Hortensia convinced so many people with her speech that the three rulers had to listen to her brilliant reasoning, and in the end, they changed their policy. And her quote was, I think we just heard this, "Why should we pay taxes when we have no part in public office?" And again, I really liked her story because she was one of really the first women that we have record of to fight for equal representation. The third story I'm picking is from Marie Tharp. I decided to pick at least one scientist. I think many of you know that I'm a scientist in my career. And in fact, you may be able to see I'm wearing a microscope necklace here. And so this is Marie Tharp. She's an American geologist. Marie wanted to study the Earth's crust, so she completed a master's degree in geology at the University of Michigan. Today, we know that millions of years ago, almost all the Earth's lands was a supercontinent called Pangaea and surrounded by a superocean called Panthalasia. In Marie's time, though, this was still just a theory based on a simple observations that the coastlines of South America and Africa looked like matching pieces of a gigantic jigsaw puzzle. In between the continents, there were huge oceans. To prove that such distant lands had once been united, the ocean floor had to be mapped. People assumed that the bottom of the ocean was flat, and this idea wasn't challenged until geologists started to use sonar aboard ships. The sonar bounced sound waves off the bottom of the ocean, and it was Marie's job to make sense of the readings. She crunched numbers, took measurements by hand, and became the first person ever to piece together a map of the North Atlantic seafloor with its mountains and its valleys. The whole world was spread out before me, she recalled. Marie discovered that at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, there was an incredibly deep rift valley that looked just like the Great Rift Valley in Africa. It formed part of a system that encircled the entire globe. She showed that the ocean floor was spreading apart, which meant that the continents were drifting away from each other. This, in turn, proved that they had indeed been united millions of years ago when the Earth was young. And her quote is, I had a fascinating jigsaw puzzle to piece together. And again, I think this is, a really wonderful story about how a woman, and this is back, in the middle of the 20th century, was really at the forefront of science. And so very inspirational to somebody like me. All right. The next one I'm going to read is from Pauline Leon, a revolutionary from France in the 18th and 19th centuries. So Pauline was born in a chocolate shop in Paris. Her parents, like most people in France at that time, were simple, hardworking folk. They were part of what was known as the Third Estate, people who were neither rich landowners nor priests in the Catholic Church. The people of the Third Estate worked hard every day, but for most, there was never enough food on the table. The rich didn't pay as much in taxes, a situation that people like Pauline thought was unfair. She wanted freedom and equality for everyone, and she wanted it now. At the age of 21, Pauline helped to start a revolution. At the time, women were not supposed to get involved in politics, but Pauline didn't care. She wanted to fight for her country. She believed that it was a citizen's duty to protect her nation, regardless of her class or gender. One morning, about 1,000 people decided to storm a Parisian fortress called the Bastille. Pauline was among them, armed with a pike. It was the beginning of the mother of all revolutions, the French Revolution, an event that would shape the future of Europe for centuries to come. Pauline encouraged other women to take part in the revolution, and she founded a group called Femmes Sans Culottes, or Women Without Breeches. Breeches were fancy silk pants worn by the nobility. Revolutionary women wore sturdy trousers instead. Eventually, the French Revolution overthrew the monarchy, established a republic, and altered the course of history. And it's all thanks to citizens such as Pauline Leon, the revolutionary born in a chocolate shop. And so the motto of the French Revolution, she doesn't have necessarily a quote ascribed to her, is liberty, equality, and fraternity. And then the last one is from right here in the United States. Some of you may have heard her name, Sojourner Truth, who was also an activist in the time of slavery. Isabella had a powerful voice, but she couldn't use it because she was born into slavery. When she grew up, Isabella fell in love with a man named Robert and wanted to marry him, but the family who kept him enslaved forbade him from being with her. She was forced to marry another man, Thomas, and they had 5 children. But Isabella never knew if she would see her children from one day to the next. The slave owners could sell them without even telling her. It was terrifying. The man who held her captive, Dumont, promised he would set Isabella and her children free, but when the day came, he broke his word. Outraged, Isabella escaped. Some neighbors who wanted slavery to end paid Dumont $20, and Isabella was finally set free. Now she could use her voice. One of her sons, Peter, had been sold to a slave owner in Alabama, but Isabella knew it was illegal to sell slaves across state lines. She took the white man to court and won. Peter returned with her to New York. Isabella changed her name to Sojourner Truth. Sojourner means one who travels, and she set out across the country giving speeches about the true meaning of slavery and about the importance of equal rights for men and women. That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches, she said in one speech. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles, and ain't I a woman? And to follow on with that quote, look at my arm, ain't I a woman? And again, one of the things I love about Sojourner Truth is she not only fought for equal rights for slaves, but also for women. So again, some nice different stories from the arts to political activism to scientists, and I hope many more stories in this book and in others. So hope you will take some time to celebrate Women's History Month. There are lots and lots of amazing women who have contributed to our history. So thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing you at the library.
Thank you, Council Member Jessica Dunne, for that reading of Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls. For more virtual story times like this one, make sure to click, like, and follow. This month at the library, we're going to be offering Women's History Month Take and Make crafts, which include a Frida Kahlo craft, as well as book recommendations and more. For more information on what's going on at the Dunellen Public Library, you can check us out at dunellenlibrary.org or at any of our social media listed below. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.